The 600s turned up to Mounts Bay for the 2025 Nationals. Pretty epic to see. I think it was 24 boats in the end turned up. I mean, long old drive, don't get me wrong. You just feel like you're getting closer, and then 3 hours later, you actually get down to the bottom corner of Cornwall. But sailing past the Mount was both a really cool experience. A bit sketchy because you couldn't put your rudder and your dagger board down straight away, and then there'd be a massive wind shadow, as you can see there, as you go past the Mount. But then once you get past it, you're presented by this beautiful bay with, on this day we had some waves, nothing crazy, but yeah, this is just me enjoying the sail out to the start line. Thought I'd just try a little reach out, sort of see if I could surf off some of the waves a little bit, because don't get waves at Grapham. It's not something I normally get to spend tons of time with, so I did feel a little out of my depth here. But honestly, you couldn't have asked for better weather at the end of September, especially because if you look at like the 700 and 800 Nationals a couple of weeks before, and they had like ridiculous winds every day. And if you look at Storm Amy, that was the weekend after, which I was actually at the 400 inlands, and that caused major problems because Saturday got cancelled, and then Sunday was ridiculously windy with gusts into the mid-30s at points. But we got really lucky with the weather. So yeah, here's day number 2. Day 1 we didn't get enough wind, bit of a shame, but jump into the sequence for day 2, where we did 4 races back to back, and then going into day 3 we had humongous waves, like ridiculously large waves, and then day 4 was flat water with another 2 races to finish off the racing. But anyway, we're starting off with race number 1 here. We had a practice day the day before where I did a bunch of practice starts, and I was OCS in about half of them, so I was a little bit conscious that I maybe shouldn't be super pushy on the line. You can see a load of people have not figured out that it's pin end biased. I should have really dived a bit further down than I did, but I was just playing it a little safer. But yeah, here we are, off we are on the line. We've got George, Jamie, and Rich who to the below. Now, Rich has a bit of his technique is normally to go a little bit lower, especially with these waves. As you can see, we're going to have to really work the boat over these waves. They're sort of not particularly huge, but they're big enough that like it's really slowing down the boat speed. I've seemed to be able to get quite good height on here on starboard, and I'm able to get into quite a good groove, but you'll notice that in a second Rich will start to really drop off. But it doesn't really sort of affect him too much. His VMG seems to be probably pretty similar to mine. It just seems like he's travelling potentially slower because of how much extra distance he's doing. Now, another thing is this gate you can see directly in front of me. We were not allowed to sail through the 1s and 500s leeward gate. So you see I'm having to bear away just a tiny bit here to avoid it. Now, the race officer did a fantastic job of actually making sure that didn't get in the way. But what has happened now is I've now just gone down below. I'm now giving Jamie a bunch of dirt, so he tacks off pretty early on now to get out into some clear air, and I'll rejoin Jamie a little further up the beat once we cross again. Now you'll see that I've come down quite a bit, and Rich is now to leeward of me, but you'll see he goes much further away and loses quite a lot of that height that I've got. You see George has gone a lot further, probably less height as well, but he's gone for attack, and he does in fact have to duck me. Obviously, he's done attack. They're not particularly quick in a 600, so pretty interesting to see. I think Rich has just gone there as well, and so I decide, okay, let's I can see the windward mark. We're getting pretty close to it. I think, yeah, let's head back. Even though the compass numbers were pretty good on this tack, it seemed to be lifting. There's George going past, so I think, okay, now I'm past into clean air. Let's get ourselves ready to go for attack. It's not my finest move. Again, first race of the championship. This result I got, I can't remember what the result was, but it was one of my worst results. I think I might have discarded it. So it definitely took me a race to get myself into the groove, figure out, one, what the course was doing this day, but also just like what everyone else was doing. I didn't really know where I'd line up to some of the people because I hadn't really raced them in a while. So a lot of it was just sort of figuring it out. Here's Ian Marshall. I'm just able to cross him. He did say keep going, but I was actually plenty clear on him. No problems there. I was a bit worried that people would take the camera out when they sail past, but luckily no one did, which is always good. Now, I am having a big problem here on port. My strops were sort of slipping because it's one continuous splice. There's me ducking Jamie. And it meant that I couldn't get the boom of centerline on port as I could on starboard. It's kind of hard to explain the problem I was having, but I did have it stitched together, but the stitch came undone like recently and I hadn't noticed, and it hadn't really been impacting me, well, I noticeably, but I did notice it when I was sailing against, you know, the best 600 sailors there are. And you can see now I've had to go below George, and now I'm sat in its dirt, so I've sort of forced myself to tack off here just so I can get out in some clean air, whereas I would have rather just taken it to the ley line rather than doing 2 extra tacks. So once I tack back, the splice then sort of slips back the other way, and the block's now in the middle, and you can see my boom's a lot more centerline than it was before. Here I'm just crossing mount on starboard, so I think, okay, great, I'll tack on top of him, give him a bunch of dirt, and as you can see, I'm nearly at the mark now, so I thought, this is great, but idiot, I can't point as high on port as I can on starboard, so what I think will work means that now I'm just really strapped, because I can't really sail low enough because Matt's there. So as you can see, I'm just getting closer and closer, and I'm really struggling for speed because I can't get the boom center line, and I can't bear away to get going. So I attack as soon as I can, sort of annoyingly into Jamie's dirt, but not too much here because he's going to sail over the top of me. He's well clear ahead there. And so that means we've got George in the lead, I believe Rich Bone in second place, who's just tacking now, Jamie in third, and I'm grounding here in fourth. So pretty good beat. Definitely seemed to pay to go left up the beat, especially a bit of a lift. People said there was a bit of tide, but I wasn't super convinced there was tons of tide. I definitely think the lifts and stuff would have been more impactful than any tide impact. But yeah, we have to go around a spacer mark that was part of our course, and we're doing a trapezoid, so no outer loops or anything, but there was a few changes to the sailing instructions in the run-up, so glad we're all clarified. However, Jamie does get it wrong and think we go through the start line as our fourth mark, even though we do have a dedicated mark. Oh no, he didn't think it was the start line. He thought that mark was the fourth mark, even though it was the start line. So he ended up just sailing extra distance. But you know, first race is about everyone getting used to it. This reach wasn't quite windy enough to get wiring, so we couldn't quite get planing. I really should have just sat on the rack and stopped trying to wire 50-50. Now, I've done a lot of work on my downwind technique, but very little in waves, and honestly, I was so rubbish at downwind today on this race, and I got much better in the later races. So I was trying really hard to sort of surf the waves because I kept feeling like I was going to nosedive into the waves. So I started doing sort of tighter angles and jibing lots, which was just stupid. What I should have done was do my normal downwind technique, which is to soak as low as I physically can because it's not very windy. There's a decent breeze. It's like 10, 15 knots, but I'm not going super quick downwind. And as you can see, everyone behind me's caught me up because I'm not going super low. And I was watching Tim, who's behind me here, who sails on the Solent normally, so he's used to, a bit of chop. And he was going really low. So I was sort of going, okay, maybe I should try that in the next lap. Yeah, definitely something I improved on as the week went on, and my downwind technique was a lot better after this race. I learned a lot. I made more of an effort to go left on the downwinds when I could, just so I could come into the leeward mark or the jibe mark on starboard and on the inside as well, which definitely, makes things a little bit easier. But a lot of learnings from this first race. Now, a pretty epic bottom reach. The issue is I'm pointing a little bit higher here to get to the mark than I probably should, just so I can keep my clean air here. But every opportunity I get to surf a wave or bear away for a little bit of a gust, I try and take so that I can make sure that I don't get myself too high, and then I've got to bear away tons, lose a load of speed, and then let a couple of people past. Again, didn't really do a very good job of managing this on the first race. Definitely improved it on the second and third race where I got fourth and third places. Because the thing you've got to remember is I'm fourth place right now, and I think I got a seventh in this race because of how I messed it all up on the downwind. I also let that strop issue get to my head where I was thinking I can't go as quickly on port, when the reality is I absolutely could. I just had to sail a different mode, and again, I figured that out in my head later, and then I fixed this problem so I didn't have this issue going into Saturday and Sunday, and especially Sunday, which was similar sort of wind strength but much flatter water, so it felt like sailing at Grafton because we were getting shifts. So it was definitely a case of trying to throw in tacks and stuff and make big gains. Now, nearly at this bottom mark, I'm watching Jamie go in the complete wrong direction, thinking, okay, Tim's done a really good job here. I mean, Tim does weigh about 15 kilos less than me, but he's done a really good job here of getting low so that he can take the height. but he hasn't quite, now he's on below, so I have done a good job of defending. But I closed the door on him pretty tightly. Not my best rounding, but I wanted to make sure that he couldn't really round very nicely. But because he went really wide in, you'll see he's got quite a good tight rounding on me. So, and I'm on port as well, so I know I won't be able to point. Now, Tim was pointing really, really high all week, to be honest. His pointing technique, so you definitely didn't want to be above him because he would lee-bow you big time. But I decided it's a good time to get back onto starboard. As we know, starboard is the favoured tack for the beat. We also know that my strops will be better on starboard, but you can see here I'm able to cross him quite nicely. Nice little flyby there from Tim. I must say I quite enjoyed how many people interacted with the camera, which I only ended up recording race 1 in the end because battery life ran out at the end. So I'm chugging along now all the way up the left-hand side of the beat. As you can see, I'm having to get myself pretty low on the wire, but I couldn't get myself too low because I end up just hitting my body slamming the wave, so not really what you want, but definitely thinking about going for attack now because all of the 1s and 5s are coming down the run. This is our first time actually seeing how this would impact because we were told we would be last start, which would just be carnage. I'm glad we went first because it just meant that we got at least a lap without any traffic. And to be honest, it didn't really impact us too much because, the angles we were doing upwind and the angles they were doing downwind just meant we didn't really interact with each other too much. We weren't really trying to do lots of short, sharp tacks up the middle. It's not really what you do in a 6. It doesn't work very well if you just do lots of tacks. You need to go in a straight line for a while and pick the lifts when you can. So I went off to the left just to try and avoid a lot of those boats so that I was worried I'd get all the way to the ley line, tack, and then I'd be going directly through them. So I went sort of a bit earlier than I wanted to, but you'll see here that I've done quite a good job of sort of not really losing out. Now, Matt's done a really good job up this beat. He was just behind Tim on the bottom reach, so he's done a good job of catching me up, probably because he went a little bit further than I did and maybe tacked a bit earlier to get onto starboard, so he was able to take advantage of that lift. But you can see the boats behind haven't taken advantage by doing the classic thing of left up the first beat, right up the rest, because quite a few of them did take the beat, just go straight around that mark, round it to the ley line and tack. But then they only did 1 tack, so you've got to factor that in. Also, Jamie is now in the mix somewhere because he lost out by going to the wrong mark. Technically still round our mark, just incredibly wide. And so he's having to play catch up now. So I think I'm now technically into 3rd place, unless Jamie has caught himself back up to me, but I can't quite remember. This reach to the spreader mark was cool, or the spacer mark was pretty good. I quite enjoyed this, but it was tricky trying to do this top reach, which I did get the hang of again going into like race 2 and 3 of just focusing on just sailing really low, and obviously you can then surf the waves quite nicely, but it was all just a lot to take in because I just haven't done much wave sailing. So I'm really keen next year to try and do a few more coastal opens and just get more practice, especially in the 6, where obviously you go from sitting in the boat to being on the wire, and that's quite a big step. Here's Ian Marshall, who's done a really good job of showing me how to surf the waves. He's gone super low. He is hooked on, but he's just sat on the rack. And to be fair, that is kind of Ian's style, is to spend a lot more time sat in the boat, especially on like the reaches and stuff. Sometimes it works in his favor, and other times it can be slower, so it sort of depends. But yeah, you can see he's done a fantastic job of surfing the waves and catching up, but he's got years of sailing, so he knows waves left, right and centre. In fact, I think he's been to Mounts Bay before as well. But he jibes off straight away. It was definitely seeming to pay to go left, but I was ahead of my head as well. Like, I don't want to jibe off to the left straight away because I'll get stuck in this big wall of dirt of all the people coming along the reach, because if you see, there's a big bunch of boats coming around. And so I've jibed now, but again, I'm still pointing a little bit too high, and it looks like Ian's made big gains, but I'm trying to point a little bit lower, and as you can see, I've caught up to Ian now. He's sort of lost out. It looks like maybe he's got a little bit more leech tension that I maybe had on. Can't really tell. Maybe I was a bit further forwards than he was as well. But yeah, I managed to get back in front of him. But if you look, Dickie here, Rich Smith, he's managed to make a massive gain. He went bang the left side big time. He does a really good job of pumping on the waves and stuff. But you see, he's made a really big jump up now. So I was just sort of not demoralised, but I was like, blimmin' heck, I have no idea how to handle this downwind. It was really, really tricky to figure out how to best go down it, and I definitely got the hang of it. After the race, I went and just did a bit of downwind practice just to sort of see how low can I sail, because the way I normally would sail a 600 on an inland lake is, and in all wind strengths, is try and sail it as low as possible. When it's windy, I will take a slightly safer angle, but then as soon as I get hit by a gust, I use that as an opportunity to soak super low and sail in the apparent wind. So, yeah, I just find it difficult because obviously when you've got waves to factor in, all it takes is to crash into the next wave, or you don't really surf the wave, so the wave just slows you down altogether. And so that I was just fixating on that too much and forgetting that actually we don't go ridiculously fast downwind, and it is all about technique and about surfing the waves, pumping the boat, but doing it while trying to sail as low as you physically can. Now, yeah, here I'm trying to sail quite high again, like I did in the last lap. But that's specifically because I'm trying to avoid, again, I've got a lot of boats that have caught me up again because of the downwind. Well, not from last lap, right? I haven't really been able to build on that. And I'm hoping in this next lap I can tack sooner, get myself out to that left-hand side, take myself all the way to the ley line, and take advantage of that lift that's available. Because I don't think that the dirty air that I would have got would have impacted from the other fleets would have been as bad as I thought. They're a lot slower, and I would just go past them pretty quick. You see, Rich has done a fantastic job of sailing low. Again, I should have done a similar sort of thing here of sailing low, because now I'm having to like come off the wire a little bit and surf the waves, and just I'm going a lot slower, and this is where people are catching me up. And again, I'm focusing. I'm trying too hard to sail the boat for the waves and not for how I would normally sail the boat. Like, I'm lower on the wire than I normally would be because I think, like, oh, I need to be back and I need to be surfing over the waves. But the reality is, I just need to be on the wire. Once I'm on the wire, it goes a lot nicer. And you can see Ian Marshall's not quite on the wire, and I think that maybe is slowing him down a little bit. And then Tim here's really pushing it, but sends it a little too hard, as does Ian. It feels like the two of them both crash. Sort of like come to a stop trying to go around the mark. But now I'm going to try and make sure I really close the door on these guys. I actually go over the top of the mark there, make sure that they can't get a good rounding. And you'll have a look now, we'll see that, you know, I've managed to close the door on Tim, whereas last lap I couldn't. And Ian's gone super duper low. But Ian actually, I believe, goes all the way to the ley line. And yeah, I discovered that he makes a humongous gain. And it definitely seemed during the day the right-hand side started to pay it later on in the day, potentially once the tide had turned. Maybe there was a slight tidal impact, or it didn't seem the right pay. It seemed like the less paid less, if that makes sense. It was less of a definitely go up the left-hand side. So there was gains. So in the last race, which was my worst result of the regatta, a lot of people made gains up the right-hand side, even though like the lift and stuff looked a lot better for going up the left. It seemed like there was maybe more pressure out that side, so not really fully certain on what happened there. But the middle races, it felt like I figured out how to do the course. I figured out the groove. It was just about getting a more aggressive start, and it definitely seemed. And that's the other thing. I had a terrible start in the last race, so I spent most of the first lap just playing recovery, of trying to get out the dirt, trying to get a lane. Whereas I had really good starts because I believe they moved the start line and it became committee boat biased, if I remember correctly. I'm sort of catching up to Tim a little bit there. I didn't want to sort of sail down on top of him. I wanted to be able to sail my own race. So I tacked off so I could go and get myself into some clear air. Also, just wanted to be able to get myself over to the ley line because I thought I was getting pretty close. I really should have probably taken it a bit further. I just didn't really like doing all the way for some reason. I think I'm on the ley line now. So again, I need to do 2 tacks this time, or 3 tacks, rather than what I did last time, which was 5, I think, in the first lap I did. Here you can see I've caught up to Rich Smith big time. He had a really good bottom reach, but I've been able to catch him. Now maybe I'm a bit slicker at the manoeuvres, not in the first lap, but I've definitely seemed to have warmed up, you could say. It's kind of a shame. I have this theory that the races I record are always the worst results I get. It's why I don't really like using the camera for serious things, because I know that I will do better when I don't have it on. So go figure. But yeah, Ian Marshall there, he's right ahead of me there. He's had a ridiculous gain in this last lap, and I believe he went up the right hand side, and there must have been something that gave him a good advantage. That's sailing for you. But I personally didn't find going right, really. gave you that dramatic of an impact, especially in the later races. I tried it and it just, I don't know, nothing really dramatically happened. Boat speed wise, I think I generally had it about the same, if not a little bit more than some people. So I had that on my advantage, but obviously the main gains you could make was picking the right side. Jamie's now caught up to the mix too. Not a surprise. He's absolutely rapid in the upwind and downwind, especially downwind, because he sails such a low mode compared to anyone else. And I was actually able to sort of replicate some of this on the Sunday, where we had about 10 knots of breeze and it was flat water. And I was able to win one of the races by sailing. Well, I had a fantastic start, and then I was able to sail a ridiculous, well, it paid to go up the right hand side of the beat, which I made sure to do pretty early on in all the laps, but also downwind I was just doing what I do best at Grafham, which is to sit really far forwards, get the boom really far out, and just soak. Every time I get a little bit of pressure, soak as hard as I could. Now Matt's caught up a little bit here. You can see Tim's ahead of me here, so he's done really well to catch up on the run already. You can see he's soaking super low and he's sat really far forwards. I'm sort of taking lots of notes on what he's doing there. And that's how I was able to make some good gains in that race I won on the Sunday, which was a nice way to end the regatta of just... I made a really good gain going up the right-hand side and was able to get past 2 boats on the last lap because of it. But it had been paying in the previous laps, and the lift was fantastic and the pressure was really good too. Here I've got Adam. I just wanted to make him jibe, and then I jibed just after he did, just to sort of try and slow him down. But as you'll see in a minute, that had no impact to him whatsoever. He was absolutely rapid, and again I was just really demoralised after the runs, which again I worked on. So here I've got to give Tim room to come in. He's inside his boat length and he's on starboard, but I'll give Tim room to go around the mark. The issue is he's not actually ready to go around, so I do get a little bit shouty, and that actually really did annoy me, because him taking his time to actually go, because he wasn't hooked on, so it meant that he went round the mark, but he wasn't ready to harden up and actually point at the mark, which meant that Adam then had a nice opportunity to come in, but because I was alongside him, I couldn't like slip into the gap. I should have gone wider and come out the top, but I assumed he was going to close the door on me, but he didn't. So, you know, lesson learned. I should just be more aggressive, because there was a few times I had roundings around mark number 3 where people just, like, because they weren't ready to hook on, they weren't ready to actually start the reach, so they didn't sheet on. It's like, guys, you know what you got to do. Like, kicker can come on later, but you can get on the wire now and pull it on once you're on the wire. But that was more a learning for me of I need to just set myself up better for these mark roundings, so that I did that later in the regatta, and I didn't have any issues because I made sure that people couldn't screw me up by coming in on starboard where I could and coming in on the inside where I could. Now Adam, I don't know how he's done it, but look how much speed he has. He's standing about the same far forward as me. Maybe he's running a little bit more. I don't know what he's doing, but he's just so quick, and now I'm kind of getting stuck in his dirt. Maybe that was the issue. I was actually in his dirt all along, but he's just sailed completely over the top of me. I should have been more aggressive and just headed him up big time, but he just sails over the top of me, and then he bears away, goes below me, and finishes ahead of me. And it was, again, I thought, oh, I'm going to have a terrible event. You know, I have set myself the goal of trying to get on the podium. I came 6th for the Nationals last year, but based on like my results this year, I got 4th at the Inlands. I was hoping maybe I could get 3rd this year. But then seeing all these people sail past me on the run and then sail past, and I'm thinking, I got a 4th at the Inlands because I'm an inland sailor, and a lot of these guys are coastal sailors and know how the coast works. Like Adam sails out of Plymouth, knows how, you know, the sea works and waves and tide, whereas that's something I'm still fairly inexperienced at in the great scheme of things. Now, we've just got to go around mark number 4 and then head up to the finish. Yeah, not my best result, but huge learnings, and I had a great regatta at the end of the day afterwards, so still lots to learn and push for next year. But yeah, thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe.